Now, it's been over 51 years since a Russian naval fleet arrived in Bay of Bengal to block the American aircraft carrier from attacking the Bangladeshi side, the East Bengal side, in its fight against Pakistan. It is today that there has been a flotilla of the Russian Navy that has arrived in the Bay of Bengal. It is right now docked in Chittagong. Now, this development takes place parallelly even as America has threatened Bangladeshi Prime Minister and pulled her up, saying that her government is not allowing for free and fair elections in 2024 in the country. Amidst all these geopolitical developments that are taking place, let's start off this conversation. Ambassador Manju Seth on the telecast with me. And Ambassador, the situation that we see right now here is a replication of what happened in 1971. But the only problem that is arising out of this closeness and proximity that Bangladesh and Russia at this point of time showcase by Bangladesh allowing for this flotilla to arrive and park itself in Chittagong is the fact that there is China that is now aligning with Russia. And the tragedy of it all is that if US continues to push allies who work in favor of India, they are squarely putting them on the side of the opposition, of the enemy, which is China.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Megha. You know, the situation that is arising in Bangladesh, the pressure that is being put on the government there to step down and have a caretaker government in place for the elections in January. This is a little perplexing for for us as well as to why they would want to do that, given that India has been, I think, conveying to them, to the US, that this is not something that should be encouraged. Given that the opposition party is aligning with the some of the radical elements, and it'll be a difficult situation if the US tries to. Yes, the US should try, and I mean it has this sort of support for democracy around the world, and etc. And it should encourage them to follow all possible means to ensure a kind of free and fair elections, but to put this kind of pressure, I think, is not very desirable. And Russia, the Russian flotilla coming in at this time in a show of support, also, I think, and in a direct sort of challenge, should I say, to the US's approach in Bangladesh. And as you very rightly mentioned, it's not, and Russia has always been actually quite involved in the development there. And I remember, and also the nuclear power plant being built by India and Russia together in Rupur in Bangladesh. That is another thing. And there are many other construction and other infrastructure projects that had been implemented, even when I was there in Dhaka, posted in Dhaka in the mid-90s. But so they have had a long collaboration with the Bangladeshi government over the years, and it's not something that is out of the blue. But yes, the flotilla coming there after 51 years, as you mentioned, and China's role at the moment in our neighborhood, in India's neighborhood, it is a cause of concern for us. And we need to, I think, convince or not convince, engage with the US government and convey our concerns very clearly that this is something which is not very desirable. Mm-hmm. And yes, we should ensure free and fair elections. That is everybody's aim.
Hindol also on the show with me. And Hindol, what do you think is the root cause of the Americans cracking down on the Sheikh Hasina government?
I'm a skeptic about these things. I don't believe these things happen because of any altruistic desire to promote democracy. I mean, people say these, governments say these things in the West. But I would like to ask the question, if America is so concerned about democracy, why doesn't it push for greater democracy in its favorite country in the region, Pakistan? right? I mean, there's no concerns. We don't see great concerns about promoting democracy there. There's something that America wants from the Bangladeshis, and there's something that Sheikh Hasina is not giving them. Now, what that thing is, we can speculate. It could be many, many things, right? But remember this. Sheikh Hasina, whatever else her flaws, is a bulwark against the fall of Bangladesh into Islamist hands. If Sheikh Hasina is removed, there's a great fear that Bangladesh will collapse into Islamist hands. And if that happens, India faces issues on both sides. A friendly Bangladesh with Sheikh Hasina works to India's benefit immensely. Now, who would benefit by Bangladesh falling into Islamist hand? It's a good question. But remember, history repeats itself, Megha. Wherever the US has removed in the recent few decades, quote unquote, authoritarian leaders, saying that they weren't promoting democracy enough, those countries' fates have been doomed. We saw this across the Middle East. We saw it in Libya. We might yet see it in our neighborhood in Bangladesh. And we should be very worried because this is a very critical region for us. And, if this happens in this region with 200 million people facing climate change, if this falls in the hands of the Islamists, there will be a lot of trouble and there will be, immense trouble that we may not be able to adequately contain immediately. So this is a matter of great concern.
Right. The 2+2 ministerial dialogue that took place, were there any talks that were happening behind closed doors with regards to this portrayal of Sheikh Hasina and her government to be quote unquote autocratic or dictatorial as has been portrayed in the Western media, Hindol? We've still not been able to find an answer to that because this has not been brought forth in a public domain. But the question is, should India then be more aggressive in its stance to hold America accountable for the actions that it is showing when it comes to Bangladesh? Or it's a sensitive situation, we need to have diplomacy at the hilt to allow for these problems to be ironed out?
Very sensitive situation. There are many delicacies involved, in the delicate maneuvers involved in this entire thing. There is a China concern. There's, of course, the entire Russian concern. Of course, this comes when the Ukraine war is still not over. Another war has started in the Middle East. So, it's almost like all fronts have been opened at the same time. But you mentioned the media in the West, and I want to make one remark about that. A whole new generation of Indians have never seen how this is done. They don't know how regime change is really conducted in certain parts of the world, how state works with media. We are fed this entire thing that, Western media is really independent. That's absolute rubbish. Yes, Western media is independent in many ways, but in many ways, when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to, hard matters of the state, the Western media has always been embedded with with their governments. And that has always been true. So right in almost like an orchestra playing, suddenly in every magazine, in the major magazine and newspaper, Sheikh Hasina, who until yesterday used to be, touted as this, leader who was reforming Bangladesh. Bangladesh was a miracle economy, only 2 years ago. Bangladesh was a miracle economy of South Asia. It was going to change the face of certain parts of South Asia. It was going to move out of LDC status and all these things. Suddenly, now the entire focus has changed from its economy, and Bangladesh is now this horrible thing, and Sheikh Hasina is this horrible leader. And who's leading this? The usual suspects. You name the big Western media house, and they're leading the attack. This happens. This is how regime change happens. You have to build a case for regime change. This has been tried many times with India. We're too big. It hasn't succeeded, so on and so forth. But we should look at this and learn how this regime change operation takes place.
Yeah.
First, how this clamor is built up, and then the state gets into action, and finally the military gets into action.
Yeah. Also, Hindol, the fact that, the actions that have been taken by the US government very publicly, there is the US envoy in Bangladesh who has been visiting these election offices and meeting these election officers to ensure, quote unquote, free and fair elections, to have a check and put these checks and balances in place. The question that, and then there are these visa revocations that have happened of the politicians belonging to the Awami League of these officers, bureaucrats of the Sheikh Hasina government who are wanting to travel to America. So if this is blatantly interference from the American side into the democratic process of Bangladesh. Now, if they are doing this so overtly, what are the things that they may have been doing secretively against Sheikh Hasina government?
No, and Ambassador Seth is with us, so she will bear with me on this. Look, what business does, if Bangladesh is a sovereign democratic, or at least sovereign, even if you say, well, how far in the democratic scale are they, all of those debates, but it's a sovereign country. What business does another sovereign country have to send quote unquote observers? Does Bangladesh send observers in the chaos that happens in the American elections? Look at what happened in the American elections last time. Look at what a chaos that was. Look at the allegations. People in America, 50% of America still believes that it was a stolen election. The Capitol Hill was raided. So should Bangladesh in this case send observers next time in the next election in 2024 to observe and ensure that American democracy is held together? Would anybody accept that? Would America accept that? So what business does America have to send such observers to Bangladesh? These are hard questions we must ask.
Yeah. I also have with me Major General A.K. Suvach. Why is United States of America hell-bent on creating an East Pakistan out of Bangladesh?
Megha, it's very surprisingly. The point today is that by action, the America is pushing Bangladesh towards China. And that is not to the interest of anyone. India has already forewarned US that by doing what you are doing, you are now forcing Bangladesh to go more closer to China and Russia. And this will have a serious implication. And, for last 2-3 years, very rightly said that the way Americans are trying to basically go closer to the BNP party of Khalida Zia, and they are trying to prop her up that she should win an election, and basically they want that Sheikh Hasina should not win the election. Indirectly, that's what they are conveying, because time and again they are putting tremendous pressure on Bangladesh, and economically they are trying to isolate it. They are making a sort of a case against Bangladesh government all around the world, and which is not fitting in overall the plan. In case if that happens, India has forewarned US that BNP Khalida Zia has got a strong relationship with the militant group. And in case that comes in power, it is neither in the interest of India, and it is also not in the larger interest of the security of South Asia. But unfortunately, USA has not able to understand so far, and the type of pressure which they are putting on the present government. All said and done, Sheikh Hasina government for last 15 years have done tremendously well, and very rightly brought out the economically. It was one of the fastest growing economy in South Asia, and they over a period of time, textile industry has done extremely well. Obviously, after COVID-19, majority of the countries have got hiccups, and so has Bangladesh. But certainly, this sort of behavior of US is not meeting the security interest neither of India nor of other countries if they try to push the election to be taken place in a manner that Khalida Zia should come power, the BNP should come in power, and Sheikh Hasina should not be a favorite. Yeah. And they are putting number of restrictions. But I suppose India is now putting tremendous pressure on US, trying to tell them what is the ground reality. The ground reality is the BNP government has got a lot of affiliation with a number of militant groups, and few of the militant groups were operating from Bangladesh and coming into India, and thereafter they were striking and then going back to Bangladesh. How can we forget that? The relationship which we have improved in last 15 years, we will go back to zero. So therefore the point today is India must put a lot of pressure on US and must advise them not to interfere the internal affair of Bangladesh. Let fair election take place, and in case fair election take place, there is almost a lot of chances of Sheikh Hasina coming again in power for the reason that economically she had delivered in Bangladesh.
Okay, Major Sivaj, then another big question this time around when the Russians have docked their ships in Chittagong, or what are going to be the repercussions of it on a global economic, global geopolitical sphere in the Indo-Pacific region?
As far as India is concerned, we are very close to Russia also. Though we are a member of Quad, we are against the hegemony, or you can say the approach which has been adopted by China. We want free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific, where there is a freedom of navigation, rule-based international order, and also that all minor islands should be able to sustain itself. But as far as Russia is concerned, we have got the best of the relation. But the Russia is now coming, especially because it is the space which has been provided by the US. And as far as Russia is concerned, I don't think it has a negative connotation like China. And India is very comfortable. And remember that they have come after more than 50 years. In 1971, it is the Russians which have played a major role along with India to get the independence to Bangladesh. And they came to Chittagong port for demining activity, and when no one else was ready to come, because they were all asking for a lot of money, whereas on a humanitarian angle the Russia had done. I suppose that India is very comfortable. Yes, the American may not be that comfortable. American will not like that influence of Russia and China to come into Indo-Pacific and also in Indian Ocean. But for that, what they have to do is they have to play the ball. They have to at least understand what is India saying. But if you try to push Bangladesh to the corner, where is the choice? Bangladesh will go to the lap of China and Russia. And exactly this is what US is doing. I suppose a good sense should prevail, and they must understand the Sheikh Hasina government is the best government which is available for a democratic system to prevail in Bangladesh.
Okay. Ambassador said, so then again, why these contrasting views and double standards by West and United States of America when dealing with terrorist activities that are emanating out of Gaza Strip versus Bangladesh and the Khalida Zia political party BNP, which has terrorist affiliation, terrorist links?
Unfortunately, this is the reality in the world today, where double standards prevail across every sector, especially when it comes to South Asia. We can see that how the double standards have been on full display vis-a-vis India, vis-a-vis, as mentioned by the general, and Mr. Hindon. In Pakistan, we can see that everywhere we see the double standards, and it is now incumbent on India to I'm sure in the 2+2 dialogue, I'm sure this was raised, and I can only hope that the message was conveyed clearly to the US side, to the American side, that this is something that they need to understand. They cannot just be sold out. There are a lot of lobbyists in their country, backed by Pakistan, backed by China, who would like to promote this narrative, and including in the media, as mentioned by Mr. Hindon. The narrative building is happening, and that India needs to tell the US that this narrative building and this kind of approach is not based on the ground reality, which they don't. And maybe as mentioned by Mr. Hindon, they have some other reason for doing so. But whatever their reason, they need to understand the impact, how this will impact the Indo-Pacific. It will impact security in the region, and will also impact the whole. If China gets a foothold there in Chittagong, to the extent that nobody else has any say, it's going to impact the security and the navigation and in the field and in the Indo-Pacific.
Okay.
And that the approach that everybody wants is free and open Indo-Pacific, that will get impacted. The US needs to understand that, and I'm sure India has conveyed it to them, and I hope that they will understand the ground reality and not be not base their approach on some other external and other extraneous issues.
Okay. Ambassador, also the fact that in the subcontinent, India and Bangladesh have forged great ties from the time of the 1971 Liberation War, where India wholeheartedly came out with its forces in support and helping Bangladesh achieve liberation, get the freedom and form the autonomous separate country of Bangladesh, from taking away from the clutches of the Pakistanis. In current scenario, does it also not become the responsibility of India to come out and support one of its very few allies in the subcontinent region? We have seen tiffs between India and Pakistan that continues to be a vassal state. With China dictating terms, we also had broken ties with Sri Lanka, which are sort of in the mend, a situation that is being leveraged by the Chinese. We take a look at Nepal, where China has had taken advantage by creating this debt trap diplomacy with Nepal, and Maldives has also seen a fluctuating relationship when it comes to India and the country. So now, between all these nations, Bangladesh is perhaps the best bet for India to have a forging, long-standing ties without any interference or of any third country or any belligerent nations. Now, in a situation such as this, shouldn't India be standing shoulder to shoulder with Bangladesh and calling out all forces who are detrimental to the democracy and sovereignty of the country?
Absolutely, I agree with you fully on that, Megha. And I think India has conveyed and is talking about the the necessity for the US to take cognizance of what is the ground situation. And we have been conveying, but yes, we need to be a little more assertive in our approach. And of course, back channel, I'm sure it's being done, but I think even upfront, a little more publicly, I think we need to also come out and convey clearly that it is in what is in India's interest and how we can achieve it.
Okay.
And the US especially, and the UK. Now, the UK, the EU, and the US all seem to have bought into this narrative that democracy is endangered in Bangladesh, which I think is a fallacy and needs to be corrected wholeheartedly and very strongly by India. That it is not democracy which is at stake, it is the whole security environment that is at stake if this continues, as mentioned by Mr. Hindon, diplomats don't go and talk to election commissioners in their host countries and tell them that you have to conduct free and fair elections. That means pressure is being brought on them not to conduct it freely and fair. That's what it looks like, because it's very strange.
Is it also because Bangladesh is a way smaller a country as compared to United States of America, and therefore America obviously showcasing its diplomatic and political heft? It's not been able to do so with India when the time came to pressure India to succumb to its demands to banish Russia in terms of the Ukraine-Russia war, but something similar, a ploy being utilized by America. My only question, what is it that America seeks to gain out of this?
That seems to be a little perplexing. What do they hope to gain out of this? But obviously, I think there is back money involved. I think there's always this lobbyists who are promoting this kind of narrative, and their funding comes from different sources. And I think their policy making in the US is very much influenced by different sets of lobbyists. And I think that could have been a major reason for this kind of approach that the US is adopting. But I think we need to also get into more strongly into this countering all this narrative and this kind of approach of the US.
Okay. All right. I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast, sharing your views.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.